And they gave us James McRory and Paul McStay. They gave us Johnston, Tully, Murdoch, Gold and Hay. And most of the football greats have passed through Parkhead's gates. But to play football the Glasgow Celtic way. And they played football the Glasgow Celtic way.
To the Celtic Ray podcast. I am your host, Stephen Ray, and this week I am joined with Kevin McColgan, or joined by Kevin McColgan. I fucked that up, didn't I, Kev? Oh, we're off to a flyer.
Well, may as well. It's the way the week's been going, so why not? Let's just start this meeting to go on.
Absolutely no point in even attempting that again or try to edit it out. Here we go. So, before I get started, I never ever do this, so I'm going to try and start doing it. This podcast is available on Apple, Google, Amazon Music. Where else is it available? On YouTube, Facebook, Stitcher. If you've ever heard of Stitcher, there's an app called Stitcher for podcasts as well. We're on pretty much anywhere you get your podcast for, so please subscribe, leave a comment, tell us how shite we are, and at least if you listen, that's what matters. But speaking of shite, it's been a pretty shit week or so, hasn't it, mate?
Oh, it just doesn't seem to get better. Really, it's the worst. It's one of the worst times I've been a supporter, I think, and I know that
to defeat and a draw.
But just the way everybody's feeling, that shouldn't feel as bad. But it's just the way that everything's surrounding it, and we can go on about this season and that, whatever it is. But I know it shouldn't feel as bad as saying 2 defeats and draws one of the worst times. But with it being so consistent of how we've been used to, then it's essentially the mood's very low. We're all a bit down. Some of us love Lennon, some of us hate Lennon, some of us want to go.
Yeah, I hate that word. I don't think anybody hates Lennon.
No,
I think there's a narrative that's got out there. We'll touch on it later. That Lennon haters. I don't think it's Lennon haters. It's just people wanted somebody else and could see potentially what was coming down the road, and now that sort of 18 months has passed, that Rodgers has left and his sort of style of play has been completely sort of wiped out, and any sort of stuff that he had gone on with the club has obviously been completely changed by now, whereas in the sort of first 6 months to a year Lennon was in, you would probably find that a lot of the style of play was similar and whatever. So, Lennon haters, I don't buy it. I just think that we all want Celtic to win, but we all just see different ways of seeing it, so to speak, and how we get there. But we'll touch on it. So let's flash back to last Thursday night. We come up against AC Milan about 6-7 years ago. This was a Champions League group game, and about 12-13 years ago this was a last 16 game. So how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, 13 years ago I was actually in the middle of the pitch doing the Star Bowl flag for that game.
Really?
I won my auntie put me in for an Evening Times competition, and lucky enough I was one of the 12 or 13 people chose to wave the Star Ball in the middle of the pitch, and it's quite something.
Was that the group game that we won, or was that the last 16?
The last 0-0. So
okay, that's pretty cool. To be fair, I was fun.
It was fantastic. It's quite an experience being on the pitch. And
as long as you weren't the guy that slapped Dida.
No, I was not. No. I missed that in the midst of the celebrations, and the next year I stole that.
So obviously, it was a 3-1 defeat. I predicted a 3-1 defeat last week. I hate getting results like that right. I just called it as I seen it. I know Milan are in pretty good form in Serie A. They just off the back of beating Inter, who are a really good side. And obviously we were on the back of a really piss poor performance in the derby. And, you've just got to weigh these things up and just call it as you see it. And that's how I honestly seen it. I thought we would score, but I thought we'd too much defensive problems to keep them out. And as it turned out, we could have got a 2 each. We had some half chances at 2-1 down and stuff like that. But I think it was a mixed bag. So the first half was, talk us through it.
There's no much. I mean,
pass that baton to you.
There's really not much. I mean, as you know, I kind of try and detail my notes, but I mean, it goes very much 4 minutes in. There was certainly our approach and our start was decent, but then
about 10-15 minutes,
right
up to they scored, they hadn't even get into a box by that point. But the first sort of 10-15, it looked as if we were kind of trying to be in the front foot. We got a shot off outside the box, and it was looking pretty positive.
Laxalt was looking good, dangerous on the left flank. And then as soon as you say it was just an absolute killer blow, because I think we were going to, kick on for there, but it was a bit of a sucker punch, and it just kind of knocked the wind out of ourselves, and then you just knew that it was going to be that way, that we were never going to win the game. In my opinion.
I think it's a floaty cross. Duffy's get caught underneath, but the boy Welsh has got to go and meet that. He's allowed to. I don't care what anybody says. People were trying to point out Nincham and Brown, and I mean Brown could have got across to help Laxalt stop the cross. Laxalt, he knows the player he was up against. He probably should have tried to exaggerate, the guy down the outside rather than letting him cut in for the cross. So, he could have probably done better. And Cham, he's a deep line midfielder. It's not his job to meet the run, because you've got Duffy, Ayer and Welsh. I was calling him Walsh. Did Gordon Stratton call him Walsh? I think he did.
I think he did in one.
And I think that's where I picked it up, and I ended up tweeting, and I get some dogs abuse for it. But what and he called him Walsh. Welsh seen him coming. I mean, the guy's on the edge of the box as the cross is about to come in, so he's got a run onto it, and he just stands there and watches him.
Far too much.
And he's got to block him.
And he doesn't do it, and people can say, oh, it's this and that, but sorry, that was his man to pick up, and he just didn't do his job. I know he's a young boy, but if you've been thrown in those sort of games, you need to perform to the best of what you can do, and I'm sure that he's been taught that you need to pick up your man in those sort of situations.
I mean, I'd even seen people try to blame Barkas. Like, it's another header 7 yards out, free header. It's right in at the post, sort of quite close to heading into the top corner. The guy never stood a chance. Give me absolute peace. People are looking for any reason to blame Barkas, and I don't get it.
There's no chance that can be rolled at Barkas, in my opinion, there, because as you say, he couldn't have missed. You could have put any goalkeeper in the world there, and they're going to struggle to get that.
Yeah. The second goal, again, Welsh, he gets himself dragged. I don't know if he's not used to being in a 3 himself, but he done the exact same thing in the Rangers game, which almost led to Rangers scoring the third when Kent sort of volleyed and Ayer. He get dragged into the opposition's half, try to win a header, whereas he done the exact same right into he was about 10 yards inside Milan's half, and they've just passed it around him, and then the break's on, and I'd seen somebody sort of videoed on their phone again, and Cham's like 35 yards from Milan's goal, and they're blaming him for no tracking the guy back, but the guy runs past Brown, he runs past Welsh, and then gets pretty much a free shot. I mean, McGregor and Duffy's got to do much better as well.
Oh, they were at 6s and 7s. I mean, I don't know what they were doing, because I think Duffy had more of a chance if McGregor didn't get in his way of blocking it, or at least making a better attempt than what he done. But I think a lot of people are not really wanting to blame Brown, and Brown seemed to have gave up when he knew he wouldn't get there, but at least keep trying.
Well, Welsh was in a slow jog back. Brown was in a bit of a slow jog back, and the guy is absolutely whizzed past the two of them at full pelt. And again, there was people still trying to blame Barkas. He should have done better. But how many shots actually get saved when a ball goes through a player's legs and it's on target? For a start, it's miles away from him. It's hit at pace. It's went through McGregor's legs, through a couple of players. Again, for me, Barkas has got zero chance of saving that. and yeah, so it was looking pretty grim at that point, and it was.
I wasn't even up for the game anyway, because I think I was just still deflated from how such a poor show it was, and then for it to be then we didn't start too badly, and then just for it to be the win taken right out of ourselves again, you thought, oh, this could be 3 or 4, because they looked in total easy street, and Ibrahimovic, as old as he was, strolling it out there.
Yeah, I mean they did. I heard people saying, they took off their big players. They actually brought on some of their big players in the second half, because they'd actually rested a couple for the Derby game. So, I don't buy all that the Italian teams are not, they're not like Germans, or they're not like the Spanish, where they're pretty ruthless and they'll just go after you. The Italians, when they get a couple of goals up, generally, go, that's it, job done, go see it out, and they've just got that mentality about them, and they've always been like that. So I wasn't surprised that they sort of eased off, but that's not them easing off and making it easy. They've got enough confidence in their shape and their players that they, no matter what Celtic throw at them, they're going to see it out. Now, credit to Lennon, because there was pictures of Lennon and Stratton on the laptop talking about, and everybody had a bit of a laugh at it. But to be fair, they've obviously spotted, or they've seen something that you don't necessarily see at pitch level, and they've decided to change it, and they've went to the back four, which they should have started with that. I don't think Welsh should have been on the park at all. I just don't think I think he showed in the Rangers game he's not at that. I don't even think he's at that level. Never mind Europa League level. So he brings on, from memory, he brought in Ryan Christie, and he brought on Elyounoussi, that's it. I didn't have that written in my notes. And right away,
cite this up just in case one of us forgets.
Yeah, I know. Right away, the team just looks totally different. They just looked as if they knew their jobs, and there was a lot of movement. It was almost muscle movement, if you know what I mean. They've played 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 so often that they just seem to know where each other was at any one time. And I think the performance in the second half was much improved on what we'd seen in the previous, game and a half, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have been hard to have improved on it. Let's face it, because it was a pretty poor showing after the goal had went in. But as you say, once we went back to the old tried and tested 4-2-3-1, we seem to have known what we had to do, and we were better at it. And yeah, we did improve, but it was the defensive mistakes which let us down again. And then, as I was talking about in the group chat to my friends, it's more to the fact that all that great play and promising is only okay to a certain extent. But when you have defensive mistakes in you, then it's just frustrating at the end of the day.
Yeah. Aye. So we end up getting Brown comes off. So I heard somebody on another podcast saying that he said Brown was getting taken off because he was to be rested for the game against Aberdeen. No, he wasn't. He was shite.
I was shocked at that one myself. My dad went, "Brown's come off a bit." I says, "There's no way Brown's." And then, to be fair, I was proved wrong. And to be fair, I was happy to be proved wrong, because I thought Rogic came on. You know what Rogic is like. We spoke about him enough in this podcast. He can find space anywhere, and some of his touches and just the ability to find space and find a pass certainly contributed to being a better performance in the second half.
Well, I'd said, I will pick up things that I got wrong, but I did say a while back that I still think Tom Rogic is Celtic's best sort of number 10, if you want to call it, the guy in between the sort of midfield and the one-up striker. And I think his movement, his touch, that was probably one of his best European performances, I think, when he came on, because a lot of these games that he started in the past, I don't think he's been, at it. He just seems a yard slow, but he was definitely, I don't know if it's just the way Milan play, that they sit off and then sort of close you down sort of when you get 35 yards for goal. I don't know, he kind of operated on that sort of periphery. That's a big word for me, by the way.
That's Tuesday night. He seems to suit a game where it's already beyond us, but then it seems to suit him, because I've noticed in games where he comes on and he just kind of helps the team a little bit. Doesn't have to do much, just with the odd pass and the odd bit of space here and there. But I think he suits that more than starting sometimes. I think more of an impact player.
Yeah,
I
mean, it wasn't really a surprise that we played well when we had McGregor, Christie, and Roderick on the park, because that was the midfield three when we beat Leipzig a couple of years back.
Yeah.
It just seemed a very dynamic, mixed sort of midfield. There was three totally different players, but they all had something that they could bring to the table. So. It was very much improved second half, and then obviously El Yunusi gets the goal. We think we're in with a shout, and I think the only real chance we had after that was in Cham, when he sort of brushed past the guy in the edge of the box, and he's pulled his shot just slightly.
Yeah,
where he should have probably tried to bend it. He's tried to waste it. He's tried to smash it, where he should have tried to aim for the back post. But Donnarumma's pretty tough keeper to beat for that distance. So.
Yeah, who looks way older than 22 or 21. Just about.
I think he's 20 or 21. It's nuts. I think he's been the keeper since he was 18. I think he was captain for a while. I don't know if he still is.
Incredible, but he's a very good keeper, and hopefully he'll become better for them. But I see then that obviously then a Yeti was taken off for Klimala.
Aye, but I don't even think Klimala touched the ball, did he?
No, and Yeti did not look happy, to be fair, when he came off.
He was raging.
And
I'm happy about that. I like it when players are upset that they're coming off, because he probably felt that he still had enough in him to see out the rest of the game.
Uh-huh.
But we're deep into injury time, and Milan play a nice sort of 1-2 triangle right underneath the camera, and then they play in the Norwegian boy whose name escapes me. Duffy's facing the wrong way. It's almost as if he was expecting the ball played down the line.
Aye.
And it's been played in behind him.
And
so by the time he's turned,
he's 2 seconds off of it, and then
he's not the quickest at turning, so the guy was off before he get turned, and then he decides to slide tackle Barkas right in the nuts while the guy's
very sore.
Anybody who thinks that Barkas was dropped, go back and look at that challenge, because it was an absolute shocker. It's a red card. If it's Duffy on somebody in an opposition shirt, it's a shocker.
I think I'd be taking a few days off from work if that was a size 11 stud coming into me. But
yeah, but I was disappointed that we lost, but I was fairly kind of upbeat in the performance in the second half. I don't buy into this, they eased off and they brought off all their best players and stuff. Ibrahimovic was never going to play the full match, because he just played the derby at the weekend. He was always going to play 60 minutes. So, I think it was a good performance, and it kind of set us up with a bit of hope getting into Aberdeen at the weekend. So we'll move on to Aberdeen at the weekend, and the sort of most noticeable. Jesus Christ.
I'll keep you right.
The most notable people missing was Brown and Barkas from the starting lineup. So what was your thoughts on that? I think he was right to go with that selection. Obviously, Barkas, he said, was injured, and I can buy that.
We've already discussed that, I suppose. But I mean, I suppose there was nothing really that Bain done in the game that could merit him, to say, he was terrible.
I'll get to that.
Yeah, Brown. I was surprised there was no Brown again, just because it was Aberdeen. It was a very important game in the context of the season, because I was very interested just to see if it was going to go the same way as St Johnstone basically went, whereby he came on and he kind of changed it for us, and then we got the 3 points there, and it was good to see Rogic starting. So I was happy enough with the team that was out there. I was glad to see a Yeti starting on his own. I just wanted to see how that was going to be. So, I mean, I must admit, I wasn't fully upbeat. I was a little nervous, if truth be told. But yeah, I was thinking we could at least get a victory up there. That's what
I think Aberdeen, they're setting up in this kind of 3-4-3 formation. They look pretty a tough nut to crack. They've got pretty solid midfield. McCrory, Hayes, what do you call him? McGeoch, and I can't mind the other boy's name, escapes me, but they seem pretty solid this season. They've been on a decent run, But I thought we were in total control of the game without looking too dangerous. The best chance we had came from Cham, for distance where he's cracked a post. But we didn't really create much. There wasn't much movement up front. El Yunusi and Christie were pretty quiet, along with Ayeti was getting very little service. And that, I was just going to say, and that's where, all the chat about the formation kind of goes out the window a wee bit when you're seeing the same players just not performing. McGregor looked completely off it, and Cham was kind of controlling the play without, creating too much. It was a bit underwhelming, to be fair.
We did the first again. We did start relatively well, and then you're thinking, okay, if we could just build on it and start to create chances, but nothing really happened of note. I mean, again, I've wrote notes down here, but the first thing I've wrote is 8 minutes in, where it was an encouraging start, and then there was a booking for Callum McGregor, who I think was lucky to stay on the park, if truth be told, because he was a lot of niggly fouls and a lot of studs down the ankles, and there was a lot. I'm just surprised he stayed on, given it was Mr. Collum in charge. I mean, the only one of you, as you say, the only thing we had was Cham, and it was a wind-assisted shot. Let's not kid ourselves. But I mean, why not take a shot when the wind's against you? Wind's in those sort of conditions. Why not? But we seemed very, very, very passive. Nobody seemed to know what their roles were. A bit all over the place, I think. But as you say, they didn't really have much of chances that you could say, we were lucky there. Aberdeen this is.
Yeah. It was a bit uninspiring, I think is the word for the first half, and then just to top it all off, I think it was Lewis Ferguson.
Ferguson.
He loses in Cham, and then when he gets on the ball, he very cleverly sort of, holds his ground, and then Cham stupidly runs into the back of him, and it was very, very frustrating. I mean,
but it's the pass before it as well. I can't remember the guy's name. I think maybe it's McLennan, maybe, and an outside of the foot pass takes out 3 Celtic players, and Ferguson's in. You're just like, it's too easy.
Yeah, so Cham for me went from having a pretty decent first half and a deep role to, what the fuck you doing moment.
I know.
And then we're 1-0 down, and then Twitters and meltdown. I don't even think I tweeted it at half time. I might have actually. I think I kind of had that, Kilmarnock 3-0 down feeling about it. Maybe not as drastic, because 15 points behind and out of Europe effectively, but it just had that. It had a feel of a big 45 minutes ahead, and something had to seriously change in the team. And then obviously we go into the second half, and pretty early on we get a brilliant move with, I think it's McGregor, Christie and Tom Rogic, and Rogic sets up McGregor, who brilliantly finishes it, and we don't see that enough for McGregor under Lennon.
But you used to see it all the time under Rodgers, where he was given that freedom to move. And Rogic, I mean, is great there, because if that's Christie in that position, Christie's taking a shot, but Rogic has the nous and the know-how to say, well, McGregor's making that run, and he has one touch, and it's a great finish, and that's all you're asking for. And why can we not play like that the majority of the time? That's the frustrating part of it.
Well, for that moment, I'm thinking, we're going on to win this 3-4-1.
Aye.
And then, not long after, Duffy has a Simunovic moment. Simunovic versus Copenhagen, where the easiest thing to do is just put it for a throw in, or put it back to the keeper. He does neither. He tries to sort of be clever and sort of, I don't know what he was trying to do actually. It was as if he was trying to turn with the ball, and the guy's just knocked it ahead of him. He's burst into the box. I can't mind if he passed it or he actually shot himself. I think Bain should do better with the shot. It's kind of bounced off his chest, hit the player running in, and it's 2-1 done, and you're like, oh man, this is bad.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, if we just go back to when we got the goal, I did think, yes, we've got the goal, but we need to. I don't know what it was, but the whole game just had a weird feel to it. And then when did get that goal back, I'm just thinking, I don't know if we'll be able to handle this. And then it's the Shane Duffy with being just trying to lob it over the, try to do an overhead kick and 10 yards away. It's just. But you're thinking, oh, here we go again, and oh, shite indeed, because I think I've put down goal for Aberdeen. Here we go again.
I think this was frustrating me about Duffy. He came in with huge fanfare. He was the Messiah, the next big thing, and I just think a lot of Celtic fans get too engrossed in the whole Republic Island thing, the Captain Island thing. And I mean, it's great that you get guys who have an affection with the club or have a sort of a link to the club. If you can get good players with that, then I think it's a good thing. But I hadn't really seen the guy play. He wasn't somebody that I don't watch out. I mean, I see Brighton versus on Sky Sports. I'm switching the channel, so I never really had much. Never really seen much of him, to be fair. So I didn't know, and I didn't comment on him. But I did comment a few weeks ago that for me, Julien's still our best centre half.
And I have to say, I was probably one of those people that was a wee bit carried away thinking that Duffy would not be the total solution, but certainly would have helped us in situations and would know how to deal with certain situations in a defence of a Celtic defence. So, I mean, I will certainly hold my hands up to that, but he is certainly not proving his worth at the moment. And I do think for the money that he's on and for the league that he's played in, I think you need to be expecting better performances, because I just think the whole game, he was all over the place.
There's two ways of looking at it. I don't think he's been playing a lot, and he hadn't been playing a lot, and obviously he's come out of the back of the COVID. I don't think he played much for Brighton when they came back to finish their season.
No, I don't think so. I think they're limited. Yeah,
so there's that, where I think he might be still trying to get up to speed, and he's maybe a bit shocked at the speed of Scottish football and how you don't get that much time on the ball. Obviously, that was he's seen that in the Rangers game where Morelos comes up from behind, where he thought he had all the time in the world on it. I think he might be caught out with the speed of the game up here, the lack of time on the ball, but also I'm not writing him off. I just think a guy his experience to make that kind of mistake, I find really, really frustrating. And I'm sure it's frustrating for Lennon as well, because he's probably looking at it and thinking, fucking Ireland captain, and you're making a bog standard error like that. It must be pulling his hair out. And we've had a go at Lennon a lot on here, but things like you just can't. That's not something you can label at the coach or the manager. That's just what the fuck are you doing? But we may get another couple of subs. Lee Griffiths comes on, Brown comes on. I think it was a Yeti and Cham went off.
Yep.
And then we get a brilliant goal, another assist from Tom Rogic, and an absolute tremendous finish with Lee Griffiths right in the top bag, top bins.
It's the best goal of the lot in my opinion, just for the way he hits it. Just one touch and bang in the corner. And I really liked the way Griffiths was. It wasn't what he celebrated. It just get the ball and let's go again. And that's the kind of mentality you're wanting. But then obviously it's a mental couple of minutes really.
Yeah, and then not long after the cross comes in. I think it might have been Christie crosses it into El Younousi. El Younousi's done really well, because he was just about to be substituted, because they were getting Tumble ready for El Younousi, I think. And El Younousi's
it was Christie that played the ball to Ayer, and then Ayer put it.
That's right.
Put it into the middle, and then he did get it, and it's a clear penalty. As I think all three of the penalties.
I think Richard Foster was on Sky Sports trying to say it wasn't a penalty. He's having a laugh, isn't he?
He's just helping his old pals, I think.
Well, Christie dispatched it pretty well. We're 3-2 up, and you're thinking, right, either push on, get another, or let's see this out. I was really surprised at the substitution he made, Turnbull for Rogic. It seemed a bit like for like. I was thinking more, another sort of defensive midfielder. And
Sorrow or something. He was on the bench. He could have came on and just showed it up, and I would have had no problems with Sorrow coming on there. I think that's the kind of game that he would like, just to get stuck in and clear the ball if necessary.
Yeah. But I was going to say the Aberdeen third goal is just calamity.
That's what
to finish.
I mean, the way that I can't remember his name now. The guy, he just dances through about 4 or 5 players.
Right, well, he goes past Turnbull as if he's not there. He goes past Brown, who I think tries to sort of pretend he's going to do this big mad boot at the park, and I think the guy actually nutmegs him. So he's away from Brown, and then sidesteps Duffy, who ends up on his one knee, and ball's crossed, put across. McGregor panics. Now, if McGregor doesn't throw that leg up to bring him down, I don't think he takes the shot anyway. I think Cosgrove takes the shot. Mm-hmm. I think the way it played out, I think Cosgrove was taking the shot, but Cosgrove was offside. So he's brought it back for the. It's a penalty. It's a clear penalty. The only thing that annoys me is they allow, let's see if he scores. Oh, he doesn't score. Let's bring it back for a penalty so they can have another free shot at goal.
I'm just. It's so frustrating given that.
But it's a penalty. There's no doubt about it.
No, it's not so much that. It's just so frustrating how we even got to that stage. Even if we just bought a foul or just took one for the team anywhere, then we could have regrouped. And I'm not saying that's the best way to go about it, but it's just the way that it's just the easiness of how it gets past about 4 or 5 players. I mean, Brown doesn't even try. Turnbull, is virtually non-existent, and then as you say, I mean, it's just frustrating. It just annoys you the more you watch it. And I have watched it a couple of times. You're just thinking, if this game couldn't get any weirder, it just got weirder. And you just thought that just sums up our luck in this couple of weeks.
I wasn't even angry. I just had that kind of sinking feeling, But when Ferguson sort of goes to step up to take the penalty, I'm sitting with my boy watching the game, and I said to him, Ben should just stand still, because it's the amount of times you see penalties put right down the middle when it's a last minute penalty. They don't want to take any chances going left or right, so they usually just blast it down the middle. So I think Ben was right to stand still. I think it was pretty clever goalkeeping. Unfortunately, Lewis Ferguson was confident enough to put it one side, So yeah, the game finishes 3-3. Lennon comes out with comments after the game talking about the referee's performance and stuff like that. And I don't know about you, but for me, I don't want to hear about the referee's performance. He's given 3 penalties in the game that were stick-on penalties. There wasn't really any bookings that you could say that weren't merited. If anything, McGregor probably should have been off for the penalty. For me, it's a second yellow. But
for him to come out and say we take the positives from that, it was very hard to see it at that time. And I know maybe at that time it's quite reactionary.
It's raw.
It's raw and you're pissed off. And I was thinking, this is just, you're thinking, the season's over and it's this and that and it's the worst thing in the world. But at the same time, they're games we should be winning. And it was just very annoying for him to say that instead of just coming out and saying, well, we're absolutely, we've done well to get back, but we should be, it's just all these excuses.
We should have seen it out. We should have seen it out. It's not the only people's fault is on the Celtic bench and on the pitch. It's nothing to do with the referee. The referees had, for me, played no real part in what way that game swung. So, did Ferguson buy the penalty? I think it was Ferguson in the first half. He bought it, but Nchan was stupid enough to run into the back of him. So that's a penalty for me. I'd be wanting that for Celtic. El Yunis is a penalty, no doubt about it. And the one at the end, as annoying it is that they had that free shot, it's still a penalty. So I don't want to be hearing how bad the referee is. I just, I want to hear how we got to that point where we were winning a match. We were losing a match, then we turned it around and somehow contrived to not come away with all 3 points. And if we come away with all 3 points, that puts us in the exact same position as we were after the same amount of games last season. But as it stands, we're 2 points worse off than last season.
And then I think it was McGregor coming out and saying that it will be a valuable point. Well,
I don't want to hear that like a Celtic captain or vice captain.
I wouldn't have expected him to say that, and I just think you don't say stuff like that. You should just say, well, I would rather a vice captain or the captain of the day came out and said, well, we're annoyed with ourselves. We should have held that out. It was.
Is the team lacking leaders at the minute?
We honestly could be here all day with this because everybody seems to have a different answer. But it seems to be we're lacking something. We look as if at times we don't know what we're doing. Like everybody, it's all a bit all over the place, and we need something to jolt us. I mean, and another thing as well is somebody pointed it out on Twitter: the mannerism of Lennon from when we're 1-0 down to when we're 3-2 up hardly changed. I don't think that's right.
I think what's happening is people are looking at Gerrard, McAllister, and Beale, I think his name is. They're all very, they're all very talkative. Every time the camera goes to them, the three of them are kind of huddled around each other, looking at an iPad or a notepad or whatever, and they're discussing what's going on. Whereas you turn to the Celtic, bench, you're looking at Lennon, sort of arms folded, Kennedy, sitting there chewing gum, and Gavin Stratton, sitting with a laptop on Babe Station or something, or fake taxi or something. Come on. So it's just perception, isn't not necessarily reality. It might not necessarily. It might, maybe they just trust their players more to, get the job done because they've been over the course. I don't know, and I don't want to speculate. I think it's just perception of how it looks.
Yeah. I'm not saying that I'm right in that respect. I just think if you look at it from last season to this season, I just think if we were in the position last season of we were 2-1 down and we were 3-2, I think the reaction of Lennon's totally different. He just looks like a man that I don't want to say doesn't seem interested, but just something seems to have went wrong, and it's the players just don't look happy.
Listen, if people can say Encham doesn't look interested, or Edouard doesn't look interested, and Julian doesn't look interested, then if the manager's got the same kind of mannerisms and facial expressions and body language, whatever phrase you want to use, then you're entitled to think that. Obviously he cares. I mean, nobody's going to ever question that. It's just, I said it on Twitter, and somebody for another podcast pulled me up on it. I said, for me, I know something's not right. But when I say I know something isn't right, that's me not saying I know because I know. I'm looking at past. I'm looking at experience now. When you look at after Mulder, Ronnie Dyler and Commons were arguing and stuff, you knew something was wrong. I didn't need to be in that dressing room to know something was wrong. The managers, the players aren't buying into the manager, they're not listening to him, or something's not right. So something wasn't right there. After AEK Athens, in fact, before kickoff, AEK Athens, Brendan Rodgers made a comment about, he's just a coach, he doesn't sign the players and all that. So right away, you know something, and behind the scenes isn't right. And Rodgers wasn't the same for the next 4 or 5 months until he left. He just wasn't as animated. He wasn't as, on the touchline and giving instructions and doing what he does. It was almost as if he was just marching time till the right job came up, which we always knew was Leicester. So when I say I know something's not right, that's what I mean by that. And that's what I explained back to that person on Twitter. So, I'm not an in-the-know person. I know very few people that know anything. or they get snippets and, sometimes they feed it to me and sometimes they don't. So I just, for me, something, whether the players aren't listening to the manager, the coaching's wrong, or the players are wanting away. And I mean, you don't say the comments that Lennon makes and no expect a bit of a backlash for players. How that backlash happens, So I'm guessing, and I'm never going to say anything other than I'm guessing. But I'm allowed to at least, make my own mind up. I don't need, hundreds of people on Twitter tell me to shut up and keep the faith. So, so disappointing. We're 6 points behind with a game in hand, which probably won't be played until next year. So, next up,
it's redundant that there's still a good game in hand because depending on how.
Well, it's Aberdeen at home is the game in hand,
and we've got a cup game now, and then Rangers are playing in the league, so that could be further behind, and then it could just be psychological. The heads could go down further because of that.
You say that, but Rangers are away to Kilmarnock, which is a place they've really struggled and I'd like to think that they'll struggle again. So I'm not counting any. What's the phrase? No count my chickens.
No count your chickens.
I've got a feeling they might drop something on Sunday, but we've got 3 games coming up that are not in the league. So we've got Lille away on Thursday. We've got the Cup semi against Aberdeen on Sunday, and then we are Sparta Prague home or away. I can't remember, but we're Sparta Prague anyway. Yeah, before we play Motherwell away. So a tough run of fixtures coming up. I mean, we'll not dive too much into Lille in the cup semi. Sorry, also we'll discuss that next week. But you know, what's your thoughts on what our chances are against Lille, who are top of the league in France at the minute?
I think if the way I'm feeling about it, I think it will just be another easy win for the home team when Celtic play away. I think it could be 2-3-0. Honestly, I don't think we'll score. I think it'll be very much a one-sided game. Lille are doing well. Can't see it being anything else other than a Lille win.
I'm going to disagree with you, and I've no basis for this, but I've a sneaky feeling, just with all the stuff that's been thrown at the players, and not winning in the last 3 games, I just have a feeling that they're going to come away with a point on Thursday night. We're only going to come away with a point if we cut out some of the shit mistakes we're making at the back. But I think Lennon needs a point. I think he needs a performance. I think he needs a good result in this tournament, leading into Aberdeen. And if he can go into the semi against Aberdeen, I think on that big pitch, I think we will beat Aberdeen pretty convincingly. I think it'll be a 2 or 3-0. I just think there was enough in the second half performance against Aberdeen going forward to suggest that there's something's turning, but defensively they need to sort it out.
Yeah, and it appears that Julian is still a few weeks away from being close to returning to even training. I think
is Beaton and Elhamed, are they going to be available for Thursday or Sunday?
Edouard are training now. Elhamed, I think, just came back on Monday there, so I would imagine that he will be put into training as soon as possible, from what I read from the press conferences today.
Yeah, I think Frimpong needs some time out. I think he's really struggling just now. He's no going past players. His end product is pretty poor at the minute. He's the kind of player that you can throw in for 2 or 3 games, but I think you need to take him out for 2 or 3 thereafter. I don't think he's at the level yet to be playing 10, 15 games in a row, especially with a side that's...
There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
He's
still a young player.
I think it's just obviously when you're young and you're his age, you just want to play every game. It doesn't matter what you think,
So, yeah, we'll cover those games next week. So I was going to try and get to some questions, but I want to bring up something. So BBC Radio Scotland last night, so being Monday night, Tom English was on, giving his opinion on Celtic fans being bedwetters for, because we're getting a challenge and that things are not looking good and we're not playing well and all that sort of stuff. And then today during the press conference, you had Peter Martin on PLZ Soccer. He called the Celtic fans erratic. He said a section of the Celtic fans are erratic, wanting Neil Lennon sacked. He asked that question to Lee Griffiths. I noticed that Celtic didn't put the press conference up today on YouTube.
Which isn't like them because they're normally quite quick to do that.
Aye, but yet, I think some of the questions and how they were answered, maybe they thought against putting it up. I've only seen snippets. But Peter Martin basically, called Celtic fans erratic. So Twitter's a great place for saying stuff and then forgetting that you said it. So let me take you back to 22nd of October 2015. If the measure of Celtic's ambition is the league title, then Ronnie Dyler will do. If they want to improve in Europe, they need better. That was Tom English that said that. That was, 2 months into his second season, the Celtic manager, he's saying that. And then you've got Peter Martin, about 4 weeks later, on the 26th of the 11th, 2015. The game is up, and so is the manager's time, #Celtic. So, a manager who had less of a budget, less time in charge at Celtic was good enough was bad enough to go then. But the same guys have got the complete opposite opinion of Neil Lennon. Now, I say it probably every week. If I was in charge of Celtic, which I'm clearly not, because if I was, I wouldn't be sitting in a shitey podcast on a Tuesday night. I'd be doing better things over time with my £3 million and heated driveway. But if I was in charge of Celtic after the Ferencváros game and after Lennon's comments, I would have pulled the trigger that night. But I'm not in charge, so my opinion doesn't really matter. So the manager, I'm trying to think where I was going with that there. Something's distracted me.
I think what you're trying to say is obviously, it's a bit of hypocrisy.
Aye, it's hypocrisy. It's, I when I say I want, Lennon should go and all that kind of thing, that's not me saying just get anybody in. If you're turning around and saying to me, we're going to bring in Gordon Strachan for the rest of the season, I'd think I'd take my chances with Neil Lennon, if I'm honest. If you're saying Roy Keane and Martin O'Neill, I'm saying probably the same, because Martin O'Neill's had his time long ago, and I think football in a coaching sense has moved on from his time, and I think Roy Keane is such a divisive character that that's the last thing that dressing room needs. So
there'd be fights and fined wages going up the roof if he was in charge. So no, we don't want. Any of the people you mentioned, you had to laugh at some people saying, "I will bring back the dream." No, just shut up. You know what I mean?
So, as far as I can see it, and this is just my observation, is I think the Celtic board are aware of, the feeling out there, but I don't think they're going to push that panic button, yet. I think Neil Lennon, for them, have still got enough in the bank, that he has been in crisis situations before and he has turned it around. Now, people have said to me, you want the manager sacked, why don't you support the manager, da-da-da. I do support the manager. There would be nothing better than seeing Neil Lennon win 10 in a row, because he is their arch enemy, if you want to call it. He is the nemesis. Neil Lennon's Mr. Celtic. But wanting a guy to win and thinking he can win are two totally different things. I didn't go into Sunday thinking, I hope Aberdeen win so I can be right that I think the manager should go. No, I wanted Celtic to win, and be proven wrong that, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm just a daft fan that sits in a podcast. I'm just doing what anybody else can do. Buy a laptop, buy a microphone, and sign up to a Libsyn or Spreaker or whatever, and do your own podcast if you want. That's all I've done. I'm just talking about football. So I personally have my doubts on whether he can turn it around, because this isn't a 2 or 3 game thing. This has been since the start of the season. Yeah,
I mean, we've been papering over the cracks, I would say, ever since the Ferencváros. And apart from odd, not so bad performances, it's not really improved. And I don't think the board will. I did think that if we did lose, then we might have seen a different outlook this week. But the fact that we drew and we're still, it wasn't as bad as a defeat, which it never is. I just think that the board was never going to do it of their own accord. I mean, this is a board that essentially waited until March before they pulled the trigger on Tony Mowbray.
Yeah.
And effectively, we were out of that title race probably come January. And they waited until we were utterly humiliated by, let's face it, a St Mirren team that were probably bottom of the league. So if we're waiting on a board to do that, then believe me, we're stuck with Lennon until the end of the season. So we need to either like it or lump it. But
I don't want to say stuck with him.
So, you know what I mean. But it's to expect a board to pull the trigger on at a time when they'd never done it with a manager that they paid a lot of money for at the time. It has to be said, and paid a lot of compensation to West Brom at the time. Then you'd be expecting a miracle essentially. So I don't know if he can turn it around just by what I've said earlier in the podcast with his mannerism and the way things are going. But we'll just need to wait and see. And these few weeks, I would imagine, are going to be pivotal.
Oh, the next few weeks are massive. You know, if he gets something against Lille, beats Aberdeen, wins against Prague, beats Motherwell, you know, nobody's talking about Neil Lennon getting sacked, you know. But if he loses on Thursday, loses to Aberdeen, and then loses the next European game, then, you know,
I think the pitchforks are out.
Aye, but this isn't. See, this is the thing that people get confused by. They think because you want to change the manager, you don't support the manager. What I'm basically saying is, I don't think he's going to turn it around. I think there's something wrong at the club. I don't know whether it's with the players, the coaching staff, whatever. I'm just guessing. I mean, the other comment came in on the back of that tweet that I pulled the journalists up on. So somebody came back to me and said, Neil Lennon has won 5 championships, 3 Scottish Cups and a League Cup. He's one of only 2 managers to get us through the Champions League group. Since he returned, he's won everything possible and has the highest win percentage of any manager in our history. You'd think he'd earned a bit of faith. You know, that's fine. You know, but we're talking about the here and now. Pochettino got Tottenham Hotspur to a Champions League final and he was out of job 6 months later because something went wrong. The players weren't performing, the players weren't reacting, they're just, something sets in at a club. You know, it's very hard to turn it around. You know, I could respond to that guy and say, yeah, but one of his remits is the Champions League and he's had 6 attempts and he's only got in twice. You know, so he's lost cup finals to Rangers, he lost a cup final to Kilmarnock. You know, one of the league titles he stepped in when he was 8 points clear and in a semi-final of the cup. So, and the other one, you know, the league was ended early, although he was 13 points clear, having played a game more. So, you know, MD can dress it up any way they want. I think, and I said it at the time, it was the Sunday night before Brendan Rodgers left, I tweeted Harry Brady, because the Leicester manager had just been sacked that morning, and I tweeted Harry Brady privately, and I said, Rodgers is going to Leicester and Neil Lennon to the end of the season. He came back to me and said, can you see it? And then 2 days later, that's exactly what happened. So if I was running Celtic and Brendan Rodgers walks out the door and Neil Lennon's available, that is the exact decision I would have made that day. It was an absolute no-brainer. Giving Lennon the job full time after that, I wouldn't have done that. I think Celtic always have to be looking further ahead than just the short term. But obviously they didn't. I don't know whose decision it was, whether it was Dermot or whatever. So he got the job. He done really well in Europe last year, although he made a calamity of the Champions League qualifier. But since the start of the season, it's not been great. The football's been poor. The players have underperformed. Most of the players have underperformed. It's not 1 or 2. It's practically the full team. Then you've got the COVID thing. So there's a lot of things going against them as well. But I think the performances is what's setting people's alarm bells off. And that Rangers game was an absolute shocker. And it's very hard to sort of turn that around. You know, people going about, keep the faith and support the manager. Let me tell you something. I went to Celtic Park after we lost to Rangers 4-2 at New Year in 1993-94. We lost to Rangers 4-2 at New Year. An injury ravished Rangers. We then lost to 1-0 to Motherwell in the Cup. And then a few days later, we lost to Motherwell again in the League 2-1. I was still got to the next game at home singing Lou skip to Lou McCarry, you know. Even though I knew the guy was an absolute shit manager, you know. So there's a difference between supporting the manager and having a view on what you think might happen. So I think people, there's 2 camps out there and they're all fighting with each other, and I'm trying to see both sides while holding my own opinion.
And the thing with the whole just they keep the faith, that's only good to such an extent. You know, I've always been a big advocate of keep the faith and all this, but I just think at this time and the way things are, I just don't think it's a time for the keep the faith. And there's a lot of Lennon supporters out there, and that's fine, you know, and they've got their own opinion, and in the same way we've got our opinion. I just think that, as we say, these 3 weeks are pivotal, but we need something to either make the season better or not.
Well, there's some prominent Celtic people who are allegedly friends of Neil Lennon commenting on and slating other Celtic podcasts and stuff like that. I seen it the day. Paul John Dykes was getting dug up by somebody he actually had on his podcast not that long ago. So, you know, Lennon's hearing all this. You know he is. He's no stupid. He knows what's going on out there. I don't think he's on Twitter anymore himself. You know, he needs to blank out the noise that's coming. We let all us argue amongst ourselves. The only thing that matters is that the players are fully behind him and are buying into whatever him and his coaching team are saying, and the board are 100% behind him. See if the players aren't behind him, then it doesn't matter what we say. A change has to be made, because the minute the players switch off, then the game's up.
Yeah, and the case could be argued that maybe some of the players have just turned and went, I'm no buying into it already. It could be that as well. But nobody has that as fact, and we shouldn't make assumptions too much.
No.
But we shall see what happens. I mean, the game on Sunday could really go either way, given what happened on Sunday, last Sunday. Not really holding out much hope for much in Lille. I don't think there'll be much change over the next week, but I just can't see us getting too much out of Lille. And the game on Sunday, Lennon at Hampden in his first time was never good. So what's he going to be like with no crowd in a semi-final again? So
yeah, I'm going to try and dig through some questions here. Somebody
the arguments that we have.
Lions of Lisbon at Michael Joseph 02 accused us of wanting Paul Lambert as the next Celtic manager. I can categorically deny that I have ever said that I would want Paul Lambert as a Celtic manager. You know, a great player, great captain, Celtic manager, not a chance, man.
Yeah. And I can also concur that I've never once mentioned Paul Lambert on this podcast, so I think the man, whoever he is, got a little bit mixed up, because as soon as we said that we've never mentioned it, he, let's just say, went very quiet.
Aye. Question here for David Grant at David Grant 19. With the publishing of the financial results for the past 6 months, I don't think it was for the last 6 months, is it? I think it's for the 6 months before. I can never remember how it works.
It's June the 30th.
Yeah. Yesterday, put to bed Lawwell's plan for hotel, shop and museum at Celtic Park. I don't know about that, because, I mean, I'm involved in construction, and I deal a lot with... I get involved with customers or contractors at a very early stage, and I'm always looking at upcoming plans and stuff like that in construction, because we've got to try and get in early with our materials. The job has been put back a few times. I mean, it's still been approved, but I think the hotel, shop, museum was never going to be fully owned by Celtic as such. I think it was an investors type thing, you know, where, say, 10 people put in, I don't know, 1.5 million each, and, you know, and the club's got a stake in it as well, so there's like a shared profit type thing. I don't think it was fully going to be Celtic. You know, this is a guess on my part, but I don't think it was fully going to be Celtic plowing in £18 million into this. I think it will happen eventually. It's just not now. I think you'll start to see all these things come to fruition after this season, when I think we get back to our sell big, you know, buy low strategy. I think the money lost through this COVID is definitely going to be replaced by players at the door. So
yeah, I think we can safely say at the end of this season there's going to be big changes on and off the park.
Yeah.
With regards to the financial results, and obviously we'll come on to them in a minute. But there's one word that can just explain it all, and it's coronavirus.
Yeah.
It's decimated many clubs up and down up and down the UK and all around the world. We have lost money, but we're not the only club to lose money.
I think we've still turned a slight profit. I think our turnover's down something like 13% or whatever. So
the profit's down very much. We've still turned it, but it's still very much not what you would expect a club of our business model to be at in normal times. But I suppose we're not in normal times, so we really shouldn't be just compromising.
Get a question for the Bonnet at Wee Fergus 98. He said, considering what to do about Lenny, we have to consider who would replace him. Steve Clark, when Scotland lose to Serbia. He's already got Scotland beat. He said, for me, it's Paul Lambert. Oh, here we go. This is it. He says, for me, it's Paul Lambert, but people are put off with his record, which is a lot better than it seems, having dealt with a number of nightmare scenarios. Steve Clark, no. Paul Lambert, no. I mean, I've said, if somebody put a tweet out, if you're going to go for who would you go for? So I wrote is my wild card. No, sorry, is my absolute. I would go for Eddie Howe. I think he's a brilliant coach. I think he's the type of manager Celtic should go after, because I don't think Marco Rose will be available. I don't think we would get him for Gladbach. There's no way he's leaving Germany to come to Scotland. So I think Eddie Howe would be a fantastic choice. I don't think Eddie Howe at this stage of the season would be a good fit. I think if Lennon was to go, it would always be a short-term replacement, which is make me think, it may not necessarily be. Eddie Howe or a Eddie Howe type manager is who we get in at the end of this season, regardless of how it goes, because I don't think Lennon sees it the rest of the season. I don't think he sees it beyond this season, so to speak. I put in a wild card. It's never going to happen, but I said Marcelo Gallardo. Now, you're probably wondering who that is. I'm a wee bit. He's the manager of River Plate in Argentina. He went into River just after they get promoted and has since won 2 South American Champions Leagues, Libertadores. He's won the Cup. He's won the league a couple of times. He's won their equivalent to the Europa League. And he's produced a lot of good young players and sold them on for big money. He plays an unbelievable attacking football. I think he's an unbelievable coach. He was a brilliant player in his time with Argentina as well. But that's that's
pie in the sky.
Fantasy stuff. That's just, if somebody's asking me for a wild card, then there you go. He's going to end up somewhere like Atletico Madrid or even Barcelona or somewhere like that. That's how highly I rate him. But but somebody of that ilk, I think, if we're going to work with a kind of director of football, head of scouting type thing, that's the road we need to go down. I don't know if Lenny will turn it around. I have my doubts just based on how we're playing and just the body language of some of the players. But
and that's for me. For me, it's the biggest one is body language, because see if we're playing not too bad and the players looked as if some of them wanted to be there, and I'm just using his body language, and I'm not saying that I know that, but it just doesn't strike me with optimism or any positivity, and God knows we need positivity in this current time.
We need a couple of results, that's for sure. We need a couple of big results, and we need a couple of big performances. I think what gave me a bit of hope is the second half performance against Milan and the second half performance against Aberdeen in regards to going forward and as an attacking force, I think. But there's still defensive issues that need sorted. So Clark, no. Lambert, no. For me. R. Stevenson, at Regan Stevenson, he wrote, what's it going to take for the board to sack Lennon? He clearly isn't the man as much as Neil loves Celtic. The board need to be ruthless in this season of all seasons. They're Tories for a reason. Oh,
we should know the name, because we're part of the Tories who are cheating with wives and
I can get down that road, man. Tories are conservative, they don't make harsh decisions. Usually they make decisions when it's too late, but I can't. It's going to have to take a couple of really piss poor performances and results in the next few weeks before they'll even contemplate it. So for me, there's no point in debating it. I think Lennon's here until further notice.
Well, I mean, if you look at it like, and this is just a wild example, but if you look at it when Bayern Munich were going through a really harsh run, they sacked Niko Kovac right away before it did really get beyond a place where it was irrecoverable.
Exactly.
So they were ruthless in their decision making. It paid off. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to do that and then everything's got all in the garden and nosy, but that just shows you the two different examples of where clubs are. We are just bide our time, or we've backed him, we need to give him the chance and all that crap that comes with it. Whereas they gave Kovac a lot of money, if I'm not being mistaken, and it didn't work, so they said, well, no, we need to get him out. And then I don't know where they got that manager from, I can't remember, but it's paid off, and they're a machine now, Bayern,
Well, this kind of leads us into this question, and hopefully this will sort of finish it off. But there is something breaking that we want to discuss right at the end regarding Edouard. But Gary Winchester had wrote, I think it's a good point to discuss is the animosity forming and the support with regards to their different views on the manager. I feel the support is now totally fractured due to what is happening on the park. This is how I would put it. I want the manager to succeed. I don't want the manager sacked because of shite results. Because shite results means Celtic are not doing well. We're either not winning the league, we're not winning a cup, or we're out of Europe. I'd rather be sitting here saying, I think Lennon will turn it around. I think, there's big signs there that he's going to turn it around. I have faith in what he's saying in his press conferences and all that sort of stuff, but I don't. And something he said today kind of set me aback a wee bit, and that was he was asked a question on tactics, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he's basically said that too much tactics and information could be information overload, and it could be too much. And I'm thinking, well, see if any of these players want to go and play in Germany or Italy or England at the really top level, then they need to be capable of taking on as much information as possible, especially in Italy. That's like the most tactical league you'll ever play in, or even La Liga as well. So I don't buy into this kind of, too much. It's no, you set up surely you just set up a formation that suits the players that you've got, and then you find patterns of play, and you work on stuff, whether it's triangles or give and goes or 1-2s, and playing down the wide and people overlapping, and getting crosses in the box, or working space, whatever. I'm not a football coach, but surely that's sort of basic stuff, and right now it doesn't feel like we've got any of that. The goal, in saying that, obviously the goal that McGregor got is the first time I've seen us play a sort of triangle give and go to lead to a goal for a good number of weeks. That's for sure.
It's good to see an attacking goal, essentially.
McInnes was asked about that goal, and he said you just can't defend it.
I think with it, like Lennon's always been one for man management. Never too much with tactics or how to work players or whatever it may be. So I think that's just maybe the way he's just answering that question.
Well, if he's not a guy for tactics, and the players aren't responding to his man management skills, then what does that leave you with?
Well, it doesn't leave you with much, I would say. It really doesn't. But from what I can just from that's just what my opinion is of that. But
listen, we're guessing if that's even the case. For all we know, the players absolutely listen, and are 100%, listening to him. But maybe just what they're putting into practice isn't coming off and match, in the matches. So plus obviously we are missing some big players as well. So there's a bit of that as well. But even when we had these players available, we weren't playing that well either. So Yeah, it's all very frustrating. I think the way I would see it is, we're all Celtic fans. We all want what's best for Celtic, but because some of us maybe think a different manager would get the best results, doesn't mean to say you're any less a Celtic fan, and it doesn't mean to say you hate Neil Lennon. It just means that your point of view is you just see it differently.
Yeah. Some people like to keep the faith. Some people think change is required and a change is as good as a rest, they say. So what's wrong with that? And everybody's entitled to their opinion. So
yeah. Well, it's the war of words is going to keep going on. I think all we can ask and all we can hope for is the next 2 games before we're back on is we get good results and good performances. Maybe right at this minute in time, Lennon doesn't necessarily need good performances. He just needs results, and hopefully the performances come. But if we can get both, I think it will go a long way to sort of drowning out the noise, so to speak. Because I don't think either one of us have been on Twitter shouting, the manager should be sacked and all that type of stuff. I think we've been. I know I've been on there saying I don't know if I think the manager will turn it around, but that doesn't mean to say I don't support him. People need to get away from this sort of, want to change a manager means you hate Neil Lennon. It's all that bullshit. The guy's an absolute legend. He's given 20 years, practically his life, to the club. He's sweated blood, tears for this club. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's got the answers.
No, I mean, he will forever go down as a club legend. He answered the call when Mr. Rogers left us. So, I mean, for that we'll always be grateful, and he led us to a treble, and for that we'll be grateful. But, you've always got to, I think, try and progress somewhere, and I think now's the time to do it. That's just our opinion.
Yeah. Well, there was a tweet came out, and I don't know if it's been quoted, or it's quotes coming from Edouard. And I'm going to... Have you got
I've
it
actually got it, yeah. I've actually got the main part of it here.
You want to read it out?
Yeah, so basically I think it's French TV have interviewed Edouard, from what I can take it. And basically says... It starts off with Eddie saying, "I've been there for 3 seasons now. Naturally, there will come a time when I start to look elsewhere, look for a league at a higher level, but for now I'm carrying on with my season, and when the right time comes, I'll make the decision to leave." So then the TV presenter comes back with, "And what does that look like for you in an ideal world? Will you stay in England, or do you want to come back to us here in France?" And it says, "Oh, we'd love to have you, etc., etc." And then Eddie comes back with, "Honestly, I haven't really thought about it all. I have no idea where my future may take me." That's it. But it's... I think if we're being brutally honest, we know that Edouard was always going to move.
Of course.
Maybe he stayed longer than some of us expected, if truth be told. Because
he probably should have been sold in the summer.
Yeah.
If truth be told. I think, I know people will turn around and say, you can't sell your best player, when we're going for the 10. But your best player with his head not in it is no longer your best player.
No.
Exactly. If you've got one eye or 1 foot or you've got one eye out the door, effectively, that you're not fully concentrated, and that's where if he's only 95% fit, is he going to play? Is he going to risk injury? And this is where the whole thing about tactics and Lennon being a coach or not being a coach, so to speak. Some of these players come to Celtic, looking to improve as a player, be put on a big stage to get moved onto an even bigger stage. And if they don't feel that they're getting coached properly, or the manager's taking them to a level that can get them to a Lyon or a Roma or somebody along the lines, that kind of second tier but top level league, second tier club but top level league, because they're not going to go for Celtic back to Paris Saint-Germain or Celtic to Juventus. That's not the step they make. They make the step to the club that are operating slightly better than us.
Yeah. They go between.
They're going to that go between before they hit the Real Madrids and Barcelonas of this world. So big clubs and really good clubs, basically the move that Dembele made. So if they don't feel that they're getting everything they need to make that level, then that's where possibly the manager's losing them. And obviously he's had a rant about players not wanting to be there, so we've got to take it that Edouard was in amongst that mix. So,
and I think if anybody would believe that it would be correct that Edouard and Ayer and probably Sham, for that matter, were probably the main three. Christie maybe not so much, but wouldn't be surprising if he did have a little part to play in that.
I'll be surprised if Edouard sees out the rest of the season with us after hearing the comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of, it's almost tactics to try and sound out someone to try and get the move put forward in January maybe.
You generally make more money on a January window.
Yeah, because they're desperate to get the player in.
I just think if we can get Griffiths back fit, if we can get Ayeti fit, and I think if we go back to a one up front, I don't know if we'll necessarily need Edouard. Of course we need him, but if he's not in it, then what's the point? So that's a bit concerning. But the club have got to do what's best for the club, and in this time they're not going to turn down big money, especially with the results
and
the financials.
It'd be daft not to. But the thing is, it's always going to happen eventually. So I think we just need to accept it, and whether it is January or June, then January or June, we just get on with it. And there'll be another player to come along who'll be the next player that we think's the best or whatever. There'll be someone. There's always somebody that comes in and does what we believe to be like of an Eddie Ilk or of a Dembele. There will be someone. I'm no doubt.
One thing's guaranteed: he's not here for 11 in a row.
No, definitely not.
Well, on that note, I think we'll call it a night. I think we've covered a lot of ground tonight, and we've managed to fit it into an hour and 16 minutes. So
I think that's a record for us.
Aye. So I just want to say, Kev, thanks again for joining us. We'll get back to watching some Champions League and wishing we were in there. So I'll catch you again next week.
No problem, mate. See you later.
And they gave us James McRory and Paul McStay. They gave us Johnston, Tully, Murdoch, Gold and Hay.